I've never said the SEC is not the greatest conference in college football, because that would be blasphemy. We wouldn't want to say that.
Okay.
But the gap has been closing consistently over the last couple of years. The Pac-12 is nipping on their heels. They are right behind them. They are. You watch those teams play. As much as we talk about the SEC West, the Pac-12 South has just as many good teams. Now, their bottom feeder, the one bad team, is really bad, and they get that pass there. Sure. But their schedule is tougher than an SEC team. They play 9 conference games. They schedule tough out of conference, and they have just as many good teams in there. But the SEC is a great conference. Okay. The fans are better. There's no question about the fans more passionate. They're just not as unbeatable as people make them out to be.
All right, with all that said and done, the college football playoff starts today. How many SEC teams make it?
I've said this from day one, from before the season, and I'm sticking to it now. There is a greater chance that we see 0 SEC teams than we see 2. Now, I'm going to stick in the middle and say we get that 1. I really feel like we're going to get 1 SEC team in. I think it's going to be Alabama. I think they're playing as good as anybody right now. Their schedule towards the end of the season has set up perfectly for them, catching these teams at home. A lot of these teams are starting to get banged up that they're playing. And the SEC East is basically going to be like a bye week for them. I mean, as much as we've talked about the West, the SEC East has been atrocious. And I feel for that reason, the SEC is going to get 1 team, and I believe it's going to be Alabama.
So if Auburn manages to upset Alabama, you could see a 0 SEC teams.
Yeah, or potentially if Missouri or Georgia from the East would win. I don't see that happening. Yeah. But if an SEC East team wins with 2 losses, that would pretty much blow up everybody's theory about the SEC West being unbeatable.
All right, Stephen A.
I'm of the mindset that 2 teams from the SEC will make it. I respect where Danny Kanell is coming from. I don't like the fact that he's sticking in the middle. I mean, go with 2 or go with nothing. Pick one as opposed to being safe. All right? You should know that by now, Mr. ABC and ESPN. By the way, you are doing a sensational job. I'm proud of you, bro. Keep it up, because I watch you every week, and I'm loving what I'm seeing from you. But I respectfully disagree with you in this particular situation. I think Alabama will win the Iron Bowl. They ain't losing to Auburn. I just don't see it happening, okay? I'm done with Auburn, okay? And plus, Alabama's going to get revenge for that luck that they had last year when they won. Alabama making my week just sickening, thinking I had to come in and listen to Skip Bayless after that game, okay? So I think Alabama will avenge that loss. They will handle their business. Mississippi State, I think Ole Miss has been exposed. And I think as a result of that, we thought that we knew their defense was big time, but we had some questions about them offensively. And we've seen what happens over the last couple. And then to lose 30-0 to Arkansas. Arkansas is 2-5 in the conference. Okay, they're 6-5 overall. I mean, give me a break. To lose to them is one thing, but to lose 30-0, I think Mississippi State handles their business against Ole Miss because they know they're still in playoff contention. I respected their performance against Alabama, how they tried to come back from that. I see 2 teams from the SEC being in the top 4 for the playoffs. That's what I see.
I also love Danny Kanell. I'm prefacing that. I told him in the break what a great job he's doing on ABC. I'm going to disrespectfully disagree with what you said about my conference, and I did attend an SEC school, though in football we might be disqualified this year because we don't really have much of a football team, talking about Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Yes. I got to tell you, in all my years, and I predate you by a couple of years, right? I have never, ever, in all my years of watching and covering college football, seen anything like this one division of the SEC. The West is so deep, and Arkansas is now so hot that, listen, I think they just might have the 4 best teams in the country in this one division. They just might. We will never be able to know the answer to this question. But this is how far I'm going to take this. Right now, Arkansas has figured it out. They have come together. They have talent. I've watched them probably 5 times this year. They can flat out run the ball behind a big physical offensive line. And Hunter Henry, their tight end, is going to be a pro football player. He is really hard to deal with. Defensively, Coach Bielema says this is a better defense than he had with his 3 Rose Bowl teams at Wisconsin. So they rank 16th in points allowed this year nationally. So as far-fetched as you might think this is, on a neutral field right now, I think Oregon would have a hard time beating Arkansas on a neutral field. It would be a hellacious game. It would be a physical game that Oregon is not used to playing. Their defense is not very good. It's gotten a little better over the last 3 weeks. They've come up in the national rankings defensively. They're still 91st in yards allowed. So, and look, Mariota is big time. He is slowly but surely proving to be the best player in college football. But seriously, I'm not sure they could beat the worst team in this division on a neutral field.
I would say we've been a little bit too effusive in our praise of Arkansas. But bottom line is they're 6-5. And Brett Bielema has done a fantastic job. I love this team. I think they're going to expect big things next year. I think they really will be a solid team. My favorite part about Brett Bielema is he complained about the no-huddle offenses. The way to shut them up is to do what they're doing, to run the ball. You saw what they did against Texas Tech.
Run it like crazy.
But the bottom line, they're 6-5. Look at other 6-5 teams. A team like Texas. Texas, all their losses are to top 25 opponents, except for one. That was BYU with Taysom Hill. They've won 3 games in a row. They're another hot team, except we don't acknowledge them because they don't play in the SEC.
But all 5 of the losses came to teams, I think, ranked in the top 10 at the time. I think they were.
But let's look at it. And Stephen A. really pointed this out. And Ole Miss is a completely different team. Like, we want to rave about that. To me, I think it shows that the SEC West was overrated, more so because of Ole Miss lost Laquan Treadwell. They're a different team without him. He was their best player.
That was the play of the year in this division, right?
Auburn lost Duke Williams for a few games. They haven't been the same either. This division has knocked each other around. I just think there are plenty of other good divisions out there elsewhere. And if you want to judge, I mean, when I look at the SEC, where I see them overrated is people talk about the defenses, how great they are. Look at the quarterbacks they're playing against. If you look at the top 20 quarterbacks, yards per game, it's littered with guys from the Pac-12, Big 12, other conferences. Not many. There aren't any NFL guys playing quarterback in the SEC, so you don't get them tested the way they would be in other conferences, or the offensive attacks either.